160 hours of my life gone, and I definitely got some stuff that I want to talk about. The 100 Lions Last Defense Academy is a game that honestly toyed with me, but also made me think. I spent over 160 hours on it, and honestly, it was a wild ride, some serious highs and some frustrating lows. So in this video, I'm going to try my best to break down what worked for me, what didn't, and why this game left such a strong and impressionable mark on my mind. Spoilers obviously ahead, as in this video, I will be talking about basically most of the routes in detail, except for the Serial Battles route and the Box of Blessings route. Those who have played the game would understand why. For a quick summary, I've been a Kodaka fan since around last year January, since I discovered the series. I played all 3 games and honestly I really enjoyed them. So when I heard around last year that 100 Lions Last Defense Academy would be releasing, I was obviously intrigued, and the more I heard about it, the more I was interested. A game with 100 endings, multiple different routes, it seemed like an instant hit. And while he did repay my faith somewhat, there are some frustrations that I just have to get out. But before I do get into the negative sides, I do want to touch on the positives, which I do think there are a lot. For one, I think the first 100 days are amazing. They bring up so many different questions and build up the intrigue a lot. I was playing the game whilst making notes, and by the time I had finished the first 100 days, I had around 4.5k words, quite a lot. Questions like, what is world death? What happened on day 23 when they all went outside to do the barbecue, and they woke up and a rational maniac was destroyed, and a whole lot more. And the reveal of Eto being the traitor, whilst expected, worked well, and no other feeling really beat when I first put the pieces together. I thought he placed a recording device in Takumi's room to listen to him and Nozumi's conversation. Hiding under the bed is a different level of insane, lol. And in turn, I believe that Eto as a whole is an amazing character. When you spare him for the second time, and then the whole cast finds out the whole truth, that everyone's memories are fake, and in reality, they are artificial humans, sent by the remaining people on Earth to conquer another planet that's not really theirs. I think Eto really begins to flourish as a character after finding out said truth, realizing that his eyes, which we thought were holy, were actually defective, and him coming to terms and going to such insane lengths to gain the character's trust again, even ripping out his own eyes to do so, really comes into shine in probably my favourite route in the game, Goodbye Eto. It was amazing. And also, all praises go to the Killing Game route. When the credits first rolled and we could see all the routes' names, and I saw that was a Killing Game route, I for sure thought it would be one of the most depressing routes in the game. But it was actually amazing. Yugamu and Tsubasa were great, especially Yugamu. He locked in many times, whether it was finding out the way to heal the sponsor, teaching Takumi how to become a more effective killer, etc., and so much more. Darumi as well, feeling guilt for surviving a Hiriko steed, so she tried to get Tsubasa to kill her and take her points. All in all, the Killing Game route's only flaw is that it has no after story. Also, I love the moral dilemma that the game gave to me when we first found out the truth, that we are in fact the invaders, and we're not trying to protect our planet, but rather conquer one that isn't ours. A planet with intelligent people, self-aware people, a planet that resides people with cultures and customs similar to us. There are many different viewpoints and discussions that can be had. Are humanity in the wrong? Yes. In black and white terms, we, humanity, is the one that is invading. But also, what they are doing isn't necessarily wrong either. They don't have a choice. Like yes, you can state that humans are 100% in the wrong. What other options do they have? Earth is destroyed. They could have pushed for peace, but this is a Kodaka game. It won't be that easy. But at least we got one ending where it happened. Wrapping up the positive side, I thought the majority of the cast were great. Here's my ranking of them all. And overall, most routes are positive. Here's also my ranking of all the routes. Alright, now the positives are done, let's get into the negative side. Before I do get onto the negatives, I want to say that even though there may be a lot, it doesn't mean I necessarily dislike the game. I do love the game a lot, but I just have flaws which are, for me, inexcusable. So let's get into them. Alright, now it's time for the negatives. One of my first glaring flaws was that at the end of the first 100 days, after Takumi went back in time for the first time, the escape pod came down with a walkie-talkie inserted, with Tsubasa and Takimaru saying that something was going on in the artificial satellite. In Takimaru's own words, this is no time for time travelling, before the walkie-talkie got abruptly cut off. It raises questions about what's going on. You're curious, so was I. It was high up on the questions that I wanted answered, but I never got the answer. You can play through the whole game, 160 plus hours, and you'll never know what they're referring to. 20 plus routes and no official answer. Sure, you can make an educated guess as to what's going on, but the game never explicitly tells you. To me, this is poor. They use it as sort of a narrative hook to get you further interested in the game, just to never find out. Whilst it's annoying, however, there are at least some sprinkles in the game where you can theorize, so it's not all doom and gloom. Also, to add further insult to injury, you never once in the 160 hours or even more, some people's let's plays go up to around 200, you never once find out what's going on in the artificial satellite whatsoever. I mean, you never once step foot into it. You're spending more than 20 plus routes, 100 plus hours protecting it, but you never see what's going on. I get wanting to keep the game open-ending. Like they said, they want to make most endings seem like a true ending, and they want you to find your own endings. But to me, it's absolutely shocking. It's like what some guy said on Reddit after I finished the game and I was reading up about what people thought. This game takes a fine line between leaving it up to the reader's imagination and just not giving enough information, and it jumps back and forth over it whilst laughing. This statement rings so true, especially with other things I'm about to talk about. Which brings us onto the SF route. Mostly a great route, but some of the unanswered questions are to me the biggest case of leaving up to imagination ever. One of my major gripes being the lady in the suit. For context, whilst Hiriko and Takumi are searching for ingredient Omega to put Shion inside in order so they can go to the artificial satellite, Hiriko, on her own, runs into a lady in a coat. She hands Hiriko the ingredient Omega and a memory chip, which states that the PLM can move forwards and backwards. But the memory chip is never used, and we never find out who the woman in the suit is. And to make it worse, there is not an instance in the game which hints at her existence, or anything about her afterwards. I don't want to call it a Deus Ex Machina, but how can I not? It just felt like the least effort way to progress the plot without convoluting it even more. Another unanswered plotline was the old man who talked to Hiriko and Takumi and told them about the curse cycle. Presumably told Takumi and Darumi about rest home in a rest home room. We don't find out who he is at all as well. And also, to add to the lady in the suit, whilst the lady in the suit does show up again to help Kakuji after she passed out, we get no information about her. How does she look? Anything like that? We don't know. And whilst there is theories online which date who she may be, Hiriko from the future or Nozomi from the second scenario, they are all baseless as there's no information that the game gave us to base anything on. And also, those meteors that hit Nozomi and which made her glow and turned her into a variant, and which in turn made Kakuji kidnap her in an attempt to take Nozomi back to her own planet. It was just something which was never really expanded on in any other route, and which was giving a quick explanation, but still, it just felt quite redundant. And also, more with Kakuji, the Gie are meant to be unintelligent species, and which only gain intelligence once they attach themselves to a host. So how did Kakuji know how to operate the PLM? because we know for sure that Kharkov had no prior knowledge to it, so it raises a lot of unanswered questions, checks which are written but are never paid. Another confusing aspect in the game was the hidden hatches. In the courtyard, where Eto and Eva are kept in their cages, we find out that in Eva's cage there was a hidden hatch. It was interesting, but a plot point that was only really used to jolt Hiriko's memory. In the SF route, to move Eto someplace else that he couldn't escape, which would make sense, but there was no hidden hatch in Eto's cage, and we know that Eva never really used it at all, so why add it? Also, within this route, we find out that this whole game is a time loop, and that Hiriko has relived these 100 days around 146 times. This does make a lot of sense, however, as her behaviour always seemed to show that she knows more than the other characters in the game, but in contrast, it also makes her behaviour incredibly confusing. Take for example, at the end of every single battle in the game, in most routes, the Supreme Commander, Vesines, I'm just going to call her V. V always comes in and absorbs the enemy commander's blood. The question I have is why on earth did Hiriko never once try to absorb the enemy commander's blood before V did? The others get a pass, but Hiriko, we've seen all this before, and there's not a single time whatsoever where Hiriko tries to take the kill before V does. She claims that she wants to survive without anyone else really dying, but her actions contradict it, as you could have made the game so much more easier. And I sort of do get why they didn't do this. If Hiriko absorbed all the enemy commanders before V, this game would be trivial, but this game has 20 routes. Think a little. Have one route where Hiriko attempts to absorb the enemy commander's blood and then dies to V. Hiriko remembers all the routes, so then I'd understand, but it does not happen, so it just makes Hiriko seem kind of dumb. And also, not really a flaw, but just funny, is the fact that she got manipulated by Eto in the coming of age route. You've looped over 100 times and you believe that Takumi would be in contact with the invaders. It's just pretty hilarious. And finally, at ending 55, which is the ending of the SF route, where they all break free of the loop, I think a lack of after story hurt this ending so badly. They all live and go through the artificial satellite, but can this really be a good ending? I don't really think so. For one, they failed their mission. The Last Defense Academy's primary goal was to protect the school for long enough so that the missiles could be fired, and that the people on the satellite could inhabit a new planet without anyone bothering them. So they failed that. There are still people on Futurum, and they took Shion. No matter how much I think, I cannot see this as a good ending. The game maybe wanted it to be portrayed as so, but as there is no after story, no post content, no nothing, as far as we know, they could just go up to the artificial satellite and get killed. So much bad could happen to them. And also, from a reward standpoint, the SF route is probably for most the last route of the game, given the story locks that were implemented. And to not show more is so sad. I wanted something. This was meant to be a happy ending after all. It didn't even need to be much. Maybe just a final CG around a couple of years later of them together, and I'd probably be satisfied. Overall, the SF route, whilst it's great and introduces many reality-changing plot twists, by contrast, it brings up many confusing plot points that never get answered. This, plus a lack of after story and post-content, make it hard to properly love. And some other bits which don't really fit anywhere, but I still want to touch on. In the zombie route, to start it off, Gaku and Darumi bring a Gie, but from the Box of Calamity, we are learned that all the Gies are sealed in the Box of Calamity, but the box is never shown in the zombie route, so we're led to believe that they just found it outside, but how? It doesn't make sense. I think most of my main problems are done, but there's still a few stuff that I want to talk about. If I don't address it now, then when? Those problems being the serial battles route and the Box of Blessings route. I'll group both of these together. Both were decent in practice, but when they put pen to paper, something happened and it ended up ugly. I'll start off with the serial battles route. It was a cool concept. What if the enemies got access to equipment that everyone else had? But 25 or more back-to-back unskippable boss fights and nothing else really happened in a route except for a decent boss fight at the end and some funny humour. I ultimately could not finish it and probably never will, and had to resort to reading summaries online. Next, the Box of Blessings. Same-ish problems. Cool idea in practice, gathering all the boxes until the route is just glorified exploration, and that wouldn't be bad if all the branch routes in the Box of Blessings went basically almost identical, the only real difference being some were focused on Gaku, some were focused on Shoma, but other than that, most of the dialogue was the same. It was so bad that I literally had to go to another route and finish the Box of Blessings as my last route. I could not be asked for a route where most of the dialogue was basically identical. And I don't get it, because unlike the serial battles route, the Box of Calamity followed a similar kind of premise, gathering the boxes, but it was so much better, so essentially, why did it not follow the same path? Which will bring me onto my final big point, I promise. Routes such as the serial battles, Box of Blessings, casual, and even comedy. Even though I thought they weren't bad, they were so long that it took away time from the more interesting routes that in my opinion could have been explored. For example, the Rebellion route. In that route, peace was actually found between the humans and the Futurals, something that's only really brought up once. In my opinion, the Rebellion route is really interesting and should have been longer. But it wasn't, because other routes were so long, such as comedy, serial battles, they in turn had to make routes like this shorter. Decisions like this led to more interesting routes, such as the Rebellion conspiracy route, failing in my eyes to reach its proper potential. Even the Vesines route, the V route in short, because I can't pronounce her name, while plot-wise it doesn't add much, it was so interesting, getting to know one of the main villains in the game, and it probably should have been given more time, but like I said before, it couldn't, because other routes that didn't need all that time took it. Whilst there is a lot more I can say about Kakuji and more, I think I'll wrap it up for now. But if you want to see more, I can certainly make another video. And whilst most of this video is about my criticisms, don't think I don't like the game at all. In fact, I loved it, but most of this comes from a place of misplaced expectations I had, and the fact that I failed to meet them on a certain number of occasions, doing it the way they did, rubbed me the wrong way. Most of the game is great, it's just many things that they did left a bad aftertaste, and I really do hope it does get a DLC, and if it does, it can probably give me some satisfaction, but even if it doesn't, it's a game that I'll never forget, which probably makes it worth playing. And also, Shunten Order looks fucking hype, so Kodaka has reeled me back in again. That's all from me. Peace. Also, as an add-on, I want to apologise for any subpar audio or background noises. I had to record on my phone's mic, so I know it isn't the best. Hopefully, in coming videos, it will be better. Peace.